my garage, and in the background you could see. Hey
Everything?
guys, no, you could just see the. I had an insulated garage door. It had like puffy white, and from a distance, and I had it taped up. It looked like bales of cocaine
Oh, nice.
stacked up. Okay, so we're gonna. Oh, we got 21 people in the room right now. Okay, guys, if you're here, get on the chat room and say hello and tell us where you're coming from. And I'm gonna go over here and get my um, get get my control room running here.
Jake, it's almost
Okay.
like you weren't prepared.
I'm totally prepared. I'm just letting people file into the room.
Jake, be
So
honest. Are you doing this in your underwear right now?
not right now, but there's no telling if I ever have before. I'm not denying or confirming.
I'm
There's
not confirming
Maggie
whether
at
or not.
Goodwill.
Yeah, I'm not
Christopher's
saying
in
whether I have pants on or not either.
all right. Christopher's in Florida. We have Art from Memphis in the home. So we got two people from the home state. Dave Pollard, hey brother, you're in Jacksonville. I met you at CES, right? Ann Linger, California. Ken from Fort Lauderdale. Julie from China. So far, she's got the long distance award. So, hey guys, we're gonna. It's gonna take just a minute for more people to file in. This pro.
Kendall.
Do what?
Kendall loves my beard.
Oh yeah, you. Well, if I had a chance, if I had the chance, I'd put you up next to Michael Quinn and say that's a beard.
Yeah, no, it's definitely kind of like a beard but smaller.
Yeah, it's kind of like a well kept beard. So, so Kendall was born in Lauderdale, but he's in Baum. What is he at? And then
Birmingham.
Ola from Guatemala. Didn't you say you were just there, Tim?
Yep. So Andrea, I cheated. I recruited one of my team members, Andrea. So she's
Oh, is that still
viewing
your team
from.
member?
Yep, yep.
Cool. All right, that's cool. Nicole Rice. Do you know her? She's saying hi, Tim. Tabitha from Huntsville. That's your stomping ground, isn't it? Aren't you from
My stomping
Huntsville?
ground.
Where are you from?
Yeah.
All right, you're frozen on the
I've lived
screen.
all over the place. I've lived. Yeah, I can't really tell you where I'm from. I can tell you where I am, but don't really know where I'm from.
Well, that's true. How long did you live someplace, or where were you at when in high school? So here's another Andrea from Missouri. Jonathan's from Alabama. Ashton from Huntsville. Are these all your employees?
No, I don't know who Ashton is. Ashton, if I know you, I'm sorry, because I've forgotten.
Sarah is waving. So, hey guys.
I can almost pick.
All right, so I'm gonna make the official. Hello, I'm Jake Robinson. I'm your host. We used to call this Amazon Hangout Live. I don't know that I'm gonna stay with that moniker or not, guys. I've been gone for like a year and a half. How many people in the room are alumni that you've been on some of my other older in the past webinar interviews? I don't know if there's anybody here, or maybe everybody's new here. I'm not sure. And generally, we would have somewhere around 100 people or so live on the webinar, watching and asking questions. And since I've been off the air for a year and a half, so my contacts with the guys is kind of rusty. So I'm rebooting and going to do this every week. One of the reasons I got off the air was I was having a difficult time finding knowledgeable sellers that were successful that weren't already selling some kind of course and that sort of thing, which I'm okay with somebody having a course or having a product to sell, but also let's like to find people that are like me or like you that hey, they just kind of got started and they got going and they're successful at it, and interview those folks. So it became difficult to do that. And then I'll make this real quick, but in 2016, my dad died. My father-in-law died 3 weeks later, and then me and my wife are both dealing with houses that belong to my parents that are out of town. I'm in Tennessee, so I've got one in Louisiana that I'm dealing with, and my wife's her house is about 45 miles away. So anyway, we just took a year off. It just wasn't a good year to stay focused on getting on here and doing the webinars. But recently, I attended a conference. Tim was also there. It was called the CES number 5. It was the 5th year that they've held it. It's through Jim Cochran's group, and they've got a good group of people, a lot of ambitious folks over there. There were about 600 sellers there, and I've got a stack of folks, business cards, and probably about half the speakers I've got lined up to be on our interview. Tim, I met him and we had lunch with 3 brothers, the Kovac brothers, and a guy named Joe Rooster, or is it Rooster Finn? Rooster Finn.
Yeah.
And we spent like probably 3 hours over lunch just talking about business. And
we left and went to dinner.
Yeah. And I think yeah, and I actually think that was probably like one of the most productive sessions that we had over the 4 days that I was there. There's that little group meeting that we had. I met you there. Anyway, Tim Jordan is our honored guest tonight. Tim, he started he got a 7-figure Amazon business off the ground, and then he got a shipping logistics company off the ground, and we're going to go in and find out how he did it and what it's all about. And the name of the title of this interview was 5-Star Validated Products Suck. And to tell you the truth, I wasn't quite sure what 5-star validated product was until we chatted last night. But once he explains that, you're going to see real quick that, hey, it could make a difference. And maybe what we're doing is not the greatest, it might not be the best thing when it comes to building an Amazon business. So tell us, Tim, how did you get started in this Amazon path, and when did you do it, and what were you doing before that, and what led you into the Amazon business?
So I got into the Amazon business almost exactly 2 years ago. I think it was this month 2 years ago. Guy walked into my office and said, "Hey, you can sell on Amazon." And I'd actually this is crazy, I put an ad on Craigslist. I know, crazy, for someone to teach me to sell on eBay. So at the time, I was working with a company doing business development, and we sold mostly to the U.S. government, and we would do procurement and logistics. So I basically started seeing our price list where we could buy an industrial part for $3, and you'd look on eBay and it would be selling for $25. So like I said, I hired some creepy guy off of Craigslist, quote unquote creepy, and said, "Come to the office and talk to us." And he sat down and said, "You need to start selling on Amazon." So he helped get us launched. He taught me basically the basics of getting started, and we went really big, really fast. I remember the first time, maybe 2 months into it, I called him and said, "Hey, I just placed a $30,000 parts order to go on Amazon." He said, $30,000? What are you doing? He said, "What if it doesn't sell?" I said, "I've got faith it'll sell," and I didn't have a clue. So basically,
what was your gut instinct, or why did you do that? Why did you think you could get away with it?
Probably because it wasn't my money. I was working for this other company, and I thought, it's their money, I'll take a big chance. But this consultant, he had given me good information, and our pricing on this stuff was just so stinking good, we couldn't go wrong. So of course we made a few mistakes along the way, but we took off. So at the end of 12 months, we were averaging over $1 million a year, which I guess is a pretty big deal. Well, 9 months probably into this thing, we were selling a lot of wholesale. Everybody kept telling me private label, private label, private label. So I followed a lot of the kind of the guidance that a lot of these other coaching classes and stuff like that teach, which is follow, the steps of private label. Find something that's doing well on Amazon, find it on Alibaba, source it from China and sell it. So my first attempt at private label actually got me kicked off of Amazon out of just ignorance. I found something that I thought, hey, this is great. I can find this exact same thing in China. So we bought it and we shipped in like 150 test units. And what I didn't realize made a difference was the person whose listing we jumped on had a little logo stamped into it, which is trademarked. So of course we were selling counterfeit. But you learn fast. We got suspended, 9 months in, got launched again, and I learned.
Wait, time out. When you got suspended, did this particular company complain, or did Amazon catch it?
No, I think a customer purchased it and complained in the review. This is counterfeit.
Oh,
so of course,
why didn't they get suspended then?
Why didn't who get suspended?
Well, the person that had the stamped logo, obviously
it was their listing. It was their actual private label product.
Yeah, but a lot of times when people complain about a fake product like that, the person that's actually the good guy gets their account shut down.
Sure. And well, he didn't, and we weren't commingling. We were doing the FN SKUs and stuff like that. Well, what had happened was I'd gotten on Alibaba and found a listing for that branded product, and I thought it was exactly the same. So that's when I started getting clued in. Hey, Alibaba's a little bit scary. A lot of people make a lot of money off of it. I don't want to completely criticize it, but it can be a little bit iffy. So I started thinking, why am I sourcing from Alibaba? I'd been doing international logistics and procurement, and I already had contacts in China. My first time I went to China, I jumped on a plane without a visa. Just you can call it ignorance, you can call it crazy, you can call it stupid, you can call it whatever you want to. I landed in Red China without a visa. We had to basically beg, borrow, and plead at Pudong International Airport to get in there, and they allowed us in for 3 days. So we at the time were buying heavy equipment and exporting it to Kenya, of all places. Kenya, Africa.
Okay.
That's
what was in Kenya?
We had set up another company that was importing Caterpillar earth moving equipment. Yeah, I'm all over the board. There's no rhyme or reason. So anyways, when I had this fiasco with this Alibaba, I was selling counterfeit, I decided there's got to be a better way of doing this. And of course, I already had contacts in China. So I called up one of my good contacts in China. He lives in Shanghai. And I said, hey, I'm selling on Amazon. We need some goods produced that I think we can sell under our own brand name. Can you find it? He said, sure. I've been doing procurement and logistics for 10 years and exporting. And I said, well, why didn't I think to call you earlier? So his name's Ron. So I started sending Ron pictures of stuff, and he would, in original factories, he would get those products for us, and we'd start shipping it. So instead of going Alibaba, we were sourcing direct through factories through my contact there. So I was learning the private label trade. We were launching some stuff that worked. We were launching some stuff that wasn't. But we were still growing. And, we were doing 70% growth every month, it seemed like there, for a while. Wow. So, yeah. And a lot of it was just pure good luck. A lot of it was a whole lot of down and dirty work. There's no easy way of doing it. It's just grinding. So we started getting other people contact us, people that I'm starting to network with that are Amazon sellers. And they said, hey, you've got a guy in China. I say, yeah, I've got a guy in China. They say, can your guy in China get me this? And I'll say, I'll check. And he would say, sure. And then we were set up as an importer in the U.S. And Ron has a company, it's an export company in China. So they would say, hey, my shipping is super expensive. I don't trust these freight forwarders. I'm not an importer. I would say, that's fine. We'll just throw your stuff in our container. They say, you can do that? And I'd say, sure. We'll just put it on the commercial invoice as ours. Doesn't matter. It's perfectly legal. It's the same thing DHL, UPS, and FedEx do every day. So basically,
so you were already, your company was already shipping stuff like this. So you already,
yep.
You already knew this market then.
Yes. So everything from Russian tires to the Middle East to generators and parts to Kandahar Air Base in Afghanistan. That's the kind of business we were doing. So basically, we could start importing. We started consolidating shipments. So if you had one pallet you wanted to ship from China to the U.S., it's super expensive. You got to get a forwarder who's going to be expensive for one pallet. You've got to have a clearing agent. You've got to have a customs bond. But if you have one pallet that we can slide in the back of our container that we're shipping 80% full, we could essentially do it for free. So I might charge you a couple $100, where your price alone would be $800, $900, $1,000. So after doing this for a while, I was talking to Ron one night, and I said, Ron, I'm not the only Amazon seller. There's a bunch of us here, these crazy e-entrepreneurs. I said, why on earth don't we start a business doing this? And he said, that's a great idea. I think I mentioned this to you 3 months ago and you ignored it. And I said, yeah, whatever. That's my idea. I'll take credit. So that's what we did. And we knew there was going to be a lot of hurdles. And there were massive amounts of hurdles trying to figure this whole thing out, because everybody that would contact us about a product is different. All these different products, these different genres. We've got different factories. We've got different locations. We've had people that wanted us to ship stuff that we can't ship. We've had some crazy stuff that people want to put in our containers, and we find out if we put that in our container and it gets inspected, the FDA is going to just, throw us under the jail. We can't do that. So we learned a lot, and we did, I guess, kind of a slow opening or a soft opening. We were doing word of mouth referrals. We were taking on a few clients here and there. We were building our team, started putting employees in place in China, started putting employees in place in the US that could handle this, getting our logistics network set up specifically for this. And just this year, we officially launched. So when we launched, I tried to walk away from the other company that I had started this Amazon business with. And they said, Tim, you can't leave. They said, so we're going to give you ownership in it. And I said, well, okay, if you're going to give me ownership in this business, I guess I'll have to stick around. So when we launched Hickory Flats, we were kind of a grassroots, found it by accident company. And at the same time, I was building this 7-figure Amazon account on this other business I had. So I was getting to see a really unique perspective of the Amazon seller journey, because I was one myself. I was trying to launch private label. I was getting this information offline just like everybody else is, or online, I should say. But on the other hand, I'm starting to witness a lot of other private sellers. And I started noticing these things that started bothering me. They started concerning me. And for a while, I felt like I was crazy because nobody else is talking about these things. And I thought, if nobody else is talking about it, I must be nuts. Like, I've got to be just crazy as an outhouse rat because nobody else sees this but me. So after a while, I kind of validated these things and I started speaking up about it. And I think that's how you and I met. Was I was on a soapbox rant at lunch in Orlando at CES, and you said, "You're nuts, but maybe you're right." So I guess that's where I'm at now.
Okay, so I'm going to back up and start drilling down just a little bit. So did you basically start two businesses at the same time? The company you were working for and you were doing the shipping for, did you keep? Are you the same business, or did you start a totally different shipping business for Amazon?
Different business. So
okay.
that business was mostly a government procurement contractor. And actually, when I went to the owners and said, "Hey, I think we can sell on Amazon," they said, "You're crazy. We can't sell on Amazon." And I said, I think we can. And I was doing business development, and I said, "I'm going to try it." And they said, "Well, you really don't have any money to work with, but you can try it." Even after 6 months, it didn't look like there was really money on paper, because every bit of profit that would make, I'd buy new inventory. So our sales went from $1,000 a month to $10,000 a month to $30,000 a month to $50,000 a month. And it didn't look like there's any profit. So I had a come to Jesus meeting about a year ago with the owners, maybe 16 months ago now. And they said, "Tim, we're not sure this is a good idea." And I said, "Guys, look." And I showed them. They said, "Holy cow, let's put more money into it." Well, that was about the time when they weren't really excited about it, that I had accidentally fallen into this business plan for Hickory Flats. So basically what I did was started launching that completely separately. So I'm working for a company. I've started my own company, and they knew about it. Everything was fine. But they didn't think that Hickory Flats was going to go over very well either. So I said, well, I'll just do it kind of on my own. So I'm working with Ron and working with the rest of this team that we're building. So when Hickory Flats really started picking up momentum and I realized, hey, this is very unique, nobody else is doing these type of services, that's when I realized that maybe I should walk away from the other company. And they said, you can't, which has turned out to be a blessing, because I've got really good help over there where I can kind of manage it, but I don't have to do the day-to-day operations. But
you mean you're still with the government contractor?
Yep.
You can't quit. They own you.
I can, but they made me a pretty good deal, and I really love it because that was my first Amazon account. You know, I'm passionate. I feel like it literally blood, sweat, and tears are in that office that I shed personally launching, that Amazon account, because for the first more than a year, it was basically just me. So when we hit our $1 million average month, I was still just completely flying solo. So I could there was a lot of discussion about walking away and focusing more on other thing, but we've got a deal set up which now works in my interest because I can kind of oversee from a macro view this other Amazon account that's rocking and rolling and is up 100% from where it was last year in sales. And I get to help other people through that journey. And
so
in the midst
so
of
that's
that,
not your. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I said in the midst of that, I've started other companies. So I think I've got 6 or 7 companies total that I am part owner in varying degrees. So I guess you can call me a serial entrepreneur or crazy, whatever you want.
So you're still in the government contractor, and you launched an Amazon selling account with them, and you're kind of overseeing that, and that's $1 million a year sales business now. Is that what their volume is?
Like I said, we're at 2 years of opening that account, and by the end of this year, we should be a $2 million a year account.
Wow. Hey, I want to say, guys, by the way, our platform has been revised. Webinar Jam updated their platform, and it's slightly different. Carla, you can help me out on this. There's a round circle onto the right, and I think if you mark it as a question, can you click on it and let me see what it looks like? Because to tell you the truth, I haven't been able to tell. And
it turned red. I see it.
Oh, let me see where it's at in the. Okay. Huh. Why am I not seeing it? Okay.
It likes me better.
Well, okay. Somebody else hit the question button. I don't know. Maybe okay, I see Carla's now. Okay, look, it has a little Q in it for a question mark. Okay. All right. Yes, Kendall, this is being recorded. Everybody will get a replay link, so if you can't hang with us, if you're not enough of a stud to stay with us, I mean, I don't know how long we'll go, but I would say the average webinar that I've done in the past has been about 2 hours. Okay, Greg, all you see is a request to speak hand. You're probably clicking on, well, I don't know. There's 3 little dots. I don't know if you guys see that, but if you click on that for a question, anybody has a question, click on it, and we will answer your question. Carl, you can unclick yours if you want to. Eileen, you said you were having problems being in the room. I sent you a link. I don't know if you got back in or not. And if somebody's like really wants to come on live with us, okay, you can raise your hand, click the hand, and I can actually bring you into the room, but you better have a good question and you better be able to add value or I'll boot you right back up. I'll kick them right back out. Eileen's an expat from Beijing. Maybe the Chinese are clamping down on her. They're overseeing her. They're interrupting her. There's Tom joined Mike Collins' course. Hey, Tom. Okay, so did Carl just chat at the bottom? Click on the 3 dots, and the question option is there. Oh, okay. So when you guys enter your question at the bottom, you can click the 3 dots and mark it as a question, or I guess you can mark it after the fact. Okay, this is slightly different than the old setup, but anyway, I'm going to answer all you guys' questions. Okay, so how you started selling in this government contractors account, and then you started your own shipping business because you started seeing some opportunity there. And they didn't really want you to leave them, but they didn't really want to get involved in that. And so now you're kind of spread between. You're like living a double life. You've got a parallel life.
I'm living much more than a double life. What is it when you have like 6 or 7 lives? That's something
I don't know. Right now. You're approaching a cat life.
So when we got cranked up with the Hickory Flat stuff, we originally started as just a sourcing company. We didn't even see the logistics as something that was going to take off. So we started sourcing for other people, and we would just ship in with existing shipments. Now, probably 70% of what we do is the logistics. We do a lot of consolidation. We, through our volume, get really good rates. So how do you get a government contract to sell products? I'm reading the question. I did not get distracted and let you run that. So so when Hickory Flats took off, we were mostly sourcing. It turned into a lot of logistics. And we also do a little bit of coaching, a little bit of consulting, stuff like that. But right now, the biggest need that we find in all the conferences that I go to and speaking is hands-on logistics, because people are scared to death of trying to ship stuff. So there's an import. So there's a lot of people that have these amazing private label ideas, and they're just sitting on them. They don't know what to do with them.
I can tell you that's a big challenge. I mean, I sold one product for a while, and I was reordering it, and I was still having problems trying to figure out if I was, I had my banker sitting there telling me, don't send this money to these guys. They're going to, he was trying to warn me that I was about to get ripped off.
It's scary. I've done some big wire transfers to China and not slept for 3 days, not knowing if it's going to get there or not. So it is scary.
Well, can you walk us through the logistics of, okay, I find the product I want to source. I got this cool product, like you just said, and I know I can get it from China, but what is the steps of how a product? I kind of know how when you come to the factory and you negotiate, and maybe they send you some samples, etc. But once you make that order, walk us through the steps of what a product does. Whose hands does it pass through, and what legalities come into play, and how does it get from to the factory to the boat, and then the steps there, and then how it gets to the boat to the U.S., and how does it get from maybe to us to Amazon?
So I'll explain the typical route of logistics for private label sellers. Okay. What we do, and Carla, the answer is no. I'll get to that. I see that question. I'll get to that in a minute. But when we ship or let me go back. As private, I'm going to put on I'm a private label seller hat. Okay, take out my whole Hickory Flats experience. What we're taught to do, and the traditional way of doing this, is we hire a freight forwarder. Now, typically, if you're buying from a site like Alibaba, you are not dealing with the factory itself. You're dealing with a reseller. So usually what they'll do is they'll have the factory ship the goods. It's called FOB, freight on board, to whatever port, Ningbo, Guangzhou, Shanghai, whatever this air ocean port is. Okay. Once those goods land, you've got to hire a freight forwarder. That freight forwarder is basically going to arrange for you, broker a deal to put on a ship or on an airplane. Once those goods are shipped sea or air, they land in bonded status at a port in the U.S., which bonded status is kind of like, what's that Tom Hanks movie where he gets stuck in the airport, The Terminal?
Yeah.
Is that it? So in that movie, he's not on U.S. soil. He's in a bonded area. So when you land in the U.S. from an international flight, you're not in the U.S. until you've gone through customs on paper. So these goods are the same way. When they land at a port, they're not in the U.S. They're in a bonded, free-floating, ambiguous state.
It's like an embassy.
Yes. That's what a port is, a bonded port. So you have to find a clearing agent. You have to have an import bond. You have to have all this procedure in place to get it cleared from the port. Now, when goods land at a port, there are U.S. laws that will not allow you to determine which third-party warehouse gets those goods. People don't know this. So if we have a container of goods arrive in Savannah, Georgia, there's about 30 private container handling yards, and we can't choose which one we want. And they do that to keep people from putting, 3 pallets of opium in, a container, and then they have a buddy at that container handling yard that gets it out. We don't know where it's going. So once it lands, your prices can change. You don't know, what the storage fees are at that place. You don't know how they're going to handle it. You've got to have a clearing agent that works with all 30 of those, which sometimes is tough to find. So it's pretty tough. And then once you clear it and it's sitting at that warehouse, now you've got to get it moved. If you've got a container, you can do it, but I will say, generally speaking, it's nearly impossible to get a full container shipped straight to FBA. It basically doesn't happen. So you need to have those goods unloaded out of the container, put on a truck, handled, packaged correctly per your Amazon shipment, and wait to go to Amazon FBA. So it's complicated. A lot of people do it. A lot of people making a ton of money are doing it, but it's definitely not easy. That's where we came in on the shipping, is we said, all we need is, the information, how big your shipment is, what's in it. We give you a quote. And then we need if they confirm it and say, sure, we want you to ship it, we say, all right, give us the phone number of your contact at your supplier and give us some money and wait. And we handle everything. And we do that because we're doing frequent imports, we're doing frequent shipments. We know what we're doing. But like I said earlier, if you have one pallet, we can get your pallet, to FBA for a few $100 typically, where if you're trying to do it yourself, it would, be mountains of headaches. You've got to get all this import stuff handled. And then it's going to cost you, $1,000 on average.
All right, so let's go back. The container lands at Savannah, and you don't know which 30 warehouses is going to show up at. Yep. How competitive is the pricing among those 30? Do they have is it because they don't have, there's no shopping around status? They can charge whatever the heck they want?
It is a racket. And I will tell you, I'm going to put it on air right now. MAD Logistics, MADD, at the airport in Atlanta, Georgia, has given me more headaches than any business I've ever encountered.
Is that one of the 30?
Well, yeah, this one's like one of 60 handling warehouses around the Atlanta airport. A lot of our consolidated air shipments come to Atlanta. These guys, when they get your stuff, they just hold it hostage, and they make it nearly impossible to get out. If you don't turn the paperwork in exactly right, they say, oh, we're going to hold it till tomorrow, $90 late fee because you didn't get it out today. It is terrible. So yes, to answer your question, there's no controlling where it goes. There's no regulating prices. You basically are at their mercy. My next business, if I couldn't sleep at night from just royally screwing people, was I'd set up one of these bonded warehouses near every airport in the U.S. and just hijack people's stuff. It's a nightmare. And that's the kind of thing, the kind of horror stories that people hear, and they hate trying to ship their own private label stuff because it's real. It happens,
Let me ask you this. And how, out of these 60, MAD's one of 60, how often does one of your shipments hit their warehouse? Out of 10 shipments, how many would go? Would any of them hit MAD, or is it luckily?
So they're different sizes, and they can handle different volume. So, for instance, out of the 60 bonded warehouses for air shipments into Atlanta, maybe 40 of them are small enough that we rarely hit them. MAD is one of the bigger ones, and we probably get them twice a year.
Okay, like so you're not getting hit all the time, but the couple times you do get hit, it's just a pain in the butt.
And they're just an example. This is the kind of thing that happens, and we know how to handle those situations. We have amazing clearing agents that have, overnight envelopes stamped and ready to go. So when they tell us, hey, here's your fees, for our handling fee, a check's in the mail, it's there tomorrow, we clear it the next day.
Wait a minute, why are you sending it by mail? Why aren't you like the direct transfer money, ACH?
Because it's a racket. They make you send a paper check, so there's automatically a 1-day delay.
Well, there's also a couple of days for, do they hold your stuff until the check clears?
No, they don't hold it till it clears, but they get that 1 day by making it be a paper check. And we have to spend $30 overnighting a check, for a 4-hour drive. Like I said, it's a racket.
So your clearing agent, does a clearing agent work for you and on board your company, or are you hiring a third-party clearing agent?
So we hire one of the best third-party clearing agents in the country. If you're interested, their name are Page and Jones, Page and Jones, Jones, and they're in tons of cities. Our local rep is in Birmingham, Alabama, about an hour from here, and he's awesome. I mean, he'll bend over backwards to get this stuff taken care of. If something crazy happens, like Border Patrol holds up a container for a random inspection, which happens, he's on the phone twice a day with them. What can we do to speed this up? What can we do to speed this up? So shout out to Page. If you guys are big enough that you're importing frequently, need your own clearing agent, talk to these guys. All
right. So I've heard that every now and then, this probably almost never happens, but every now and then your stuff is in a container that Border Patrol decides they're going to inspect, and that it could take 2 or 3 days or 2 or 3 weeks before they're done looking at that thing. It's 2 to 3 weeks. Is it that long, or?
I've seen it longer.
Wow.
So we, not just geographically where we're located, but we like to import to the East Coast for several reasons. Everybody thinks that China has to import to Oakland, Seattle, West Coast. We can get a container shipped to the East Coast only 3 days longer than it takes to get to the West Coast. Okay, so 3 days longer transit time coming through the Panama Canal, coming that route. However, it is much cheaper and faster to clear the ports on the East Coast. So you remember a couple years ago, all over the news, the port of Oakland went on a massive strike.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Jacked people's stuff up for like 2 months right before fourth quarter. It's just a complete nightmare. Well, the way
Wasn't it an
papers,
Occupy movement kind of thing?
I don't even remember what it was,
I think,
but
yeah.
the way import and shipping documents work are, if you tell the U.S. government, I have something leaving China, and you have to, for an ocean shipment, you have to file something with the government before it even leaves the port in the other country. So you tell them, I'm shipping something from Shanghai to Oakland. It has to clear Oakland. There's no getting around it. So when the port of Oakland strikes, there's no way to say, well, maybe that ship will just run up to Seattle instead. No, it anchors off and it sits there and it sits there and it sits there. The other thing about California, you know, they have like all these different EPA laws and stuff like that. They're very strict on like their truck chassis that come in and pick up your containers. Every container that comes through the West Coast, especially California, has to be fumigated. So the port costs are super high. So because of the backlog for fourth quarter, because of the labor strikes, and because of the cost of clearing, we can usually clear a container on the East Coast a week faster and cheaper than you can through the West Coast.
So you're basically getting 4 days ahead with a 3-day lag on getting it there through the Panama Canal. You're picking up 4 days on the other end, and it costs less.
And costs less. So now let me answer your question. Customs and Border Patrol is kind of like TSA at the airport. Some people are just going to get patted down. You can do everything right. You can have no luggage to go through the X-ray and get, flagged, and they're going to fill you up. It's because you have been randomly selected to get patted down. So this happens with air and ocean imports as well, and it's a security feature. We have had containers that everything was perfectly in order, and they said, hey, we're going to do an X-ray exam. It's called a VACIS, V-A-C-I-S exam. VACIS exam is where they put this container on a trailer and they run it through this enormous X-ray machine and look through it. Typically, this is only a day. VACIS exam is $100 for the whole container, $150, and we just share that cost with everybody.
Yeah, so, time out, because I've also heard that if you do get caught in a border inspection or border patrol inspection, they charge you money to do that, and it's passed along to you, and you have to pay it, and it could be expensive. It could be a couple of $1,000 from what I've heard. Is that true?
Much more than that even. So when I give people a shipping quote, I'll give you a shipping quote for everything but duties and inspections. Now, the reason I can't give you duties is there are Border Patrol agents that get to determine your duty rate, okay? I had a client today. He said, hey, I'm buying this from China. I want you to ship it for me. Give me a quote. Here's the HTS code, which it stands for Harmonized Tariff Schedule, and it's like the universal code for what you have. So I sent this over to Page and Jones. I said, hey, what's the duty on this? He said, it's anywhere from 1 to 2.9%. And I said, okay, 1 to 2.9. What this means is there is enough variation in the law. It's kind of like accounting that the individual clearing agent can determine if it's 1 or 2.9.
All right, so it could be like I have light bulbs, incandescent light bulbs, and they say, well, we're doing away with those, so we're putting a high tariff on it. But if you call it, no, it's not a light bulb, it's a heating element. You could get it reclassified under something different that causes it to be.
Yeah, but they're going to look at that and say, this is a light bulb, we're hitting you with the anti-dumping tax. But
so you can't choose that anymore. So used to you could do that, or has that always been that way? That they choose?
People try to get away with it, but it doesn't always work. So let me explain really how crazy this is. If you are shipping in fluorescent light bulbs, okay, if your fluorescent light bulb is 3 feet long, it's a different code and a different duty rate than if it's 4 feet long.
Say that again.
A 3-foot fluorescent bulb is a different duty rate than a 4-foot fluorescent bulb.
Okay, well, I understand that. One's longer than the other.
It's fluorescent bulb made exactly the same way. So when somebody says, hey, I've got an HTS code, what's my duty rate? I don't know. I can't tell you because you are going to be judged by somebody at the port, right? I have, let's say somebody's bringing in luggage, okay? Does the luggage have wheels? Does it have 2 zippers or 3 zippers? Is it made of fake leather, real leather, plastic? Is it hard? Is it soft? Is it 1 cubic feet, 2 cubic feet, 3 cubic feet? What color is it? Does it have a handle on the side or just on the top? All of those things affect HTS codes, right? Okay. It's insane. So to answer your question about the inspections, we cannot guarantee that inspections and rates. You can't guarantee the profits, as I say. You're going to get your share of the inspection. So if someone comes in and says, hey, or I'm sorry, CBP comes in and says, hey, we're going to hit you with a $1,000 inspection fee on this container. What we do is we figure out the volume of everybody. So it's not unusual for us to have a container with 12 people's stuff in it. What I do is I figure out their volume, their percentage of container, and I might send you a bill and say, hey, here's your invoice, $2, which is your share of this. Or someone else might owe $650, which is their share. Now, occasionally, so these VAXIS exams, the X-ray exams, cost about $100, $150, sometimes $200, depending on what port. If they decide they're going to do a comprehensive exam, this is where we cry. And this is where I curl up in the fetal position on the floor and hope this goes quickly. Because what this means is they're going to take your container to a warehouse, and somebody is going to unpack every single box in that container. Okay?
Oh, my God. And they're going to repack it? They're going to pack it back after they're done?
I've had people call me and say, hey, we packed your container, but we got 6 boxes that didn't fit because we don't play Jenga as good as the guys in China. It's like, crap. So then they got to do, a separate shipment for those 6 boxes. I've gone through it's called floor-loaded containers where you don't use a pallet. They just stack it floor to ceiling, and then we have to unload it by hand. I've gone through floor-loaded containers, and I get to the very last row, and there's a box that has Customs and Border Patrol tape on it, which literally means they took every single box and inspected the last one, and they put their own secure tape on it, right? So here's the issue. Some shippers charge you what's called demurrage on inspections, which means, all right, let me back up. When you bring a container in, you have maybe 7 days to get that container out of the port to your location, unload it, and then have the container delivered back, okay? 7 days is average. If you go over 7 days, they're going to charge you container rental, which can be $100 to $200 a day. There are some shipping companies out there, the low budget ones, that say, hey, if your goods got held up for a intensive exam for a month, you're going to pay us rent for every day of that month at $200 a day. Okay?
Wow. So
once it clears customs, they send you a bill and they say, you owe us $6,000 for this container. And if they don't pay you the container, they won't release it to you. So I say all this to say, these are some of the hurdles that we had to get through when we first got started, was learning.
Wait a minute. You as a shipper have to pay. Who's paying who the $6,000?
As the importer, I'm stuck with a $6,000 bill.
Do you pay it out of pocket up front because you can't wait till you collect it from all your different?
We have to pay that before they even release it. So yes, we have to pay it.
And then you prorate it out to the how many cubic feet of the container you took up.
Sometimes I'm a horrible businessman because I'll send a quote that says, if we get stuck with inspections, you've got to do your share. But it isn't. When we first got started, we got hit with a couple of these because we didn't know which shippers were more likely to charge us for those extended rental rates. So we just ate it a couple times. I would get a $6,000 bill and I'd tell my partners, I'd say, guys, we've only got 2 customers shared goods in this 50-50. I can't send them a $3,000 bill just to clear customs because we got stuck with this random inspection thing, so I would eat it. I know people tell me I'm crazy, but maybe, in fact, I know we've got some long-time good customers because we would do stuff like that. Now what we know is we have a list of shippers that we do not use. Evergreen Ship Lines, oh my goodness, the worst shipper I've ever dealt with. And if you are importing from China yourself and you are getting a freight forwarder to line up your shipments and they say we can get a rate from Evergreen Shipping, run as far away from that quote as you possibly can because they will charge you $200 a day container rental. It's a nightmare. Stay away from those guys.
So even on the X-ray, if it takes 1 day for the X-ray, they're going to get you for the $200 on top of the X-ray fee, or only if it's
if it goes over the 7. So typically you have 7
days.
Yes.
So they give you 7. So you've been able over time. So you're not an actual. It's not like you own a ship.
No.
And you're shipping the stuff. You're the guy that lines up the ships that take the stuff, and then you've got the the folks on this end, the clearing agents. Are there anybody else besides a clearing agent that's involved when when your container hits the port?
Typically at the port, no. All you need is a clearing agent, and then once it gets cleared, we have different trucking companies that we use here go pick up that container and bring it to our warehouse where we unload those suckers by hand. Now, as far as the shipping and containers, we do have a team in China. Remember I told you my original business partners in China, we've got staff there. So we will consolidate, and then we shop around through different shipping companies and say, hey, we've got a 40-foot high cube container's worth of goods that needs to leave in this 3-day period, give us rates. So we get rates from the shippers that we have a good relationship and the shippers that we like. And then we'll ship and then receive it on this end, basically.
How many shipping companies do you like that you have in your pool of potential shippers?
Ocean, maybe 10.
Okay. And so over the couple of years you've been messing around with this, I guess that's a different shipping than you had to deal with when you were working for the contractor moving big equipment?
The principles apply, but different service providers are used. Now, remember, when I got started in this, I had a business partner who has an export company in China. So he was 10 years ahead of me on exporting from China. So when we first got started, he already knew most of this stuff. So it's not like we started completely from scratch. When we first started, he said, I'm going to ship it. You catch it on, the U.S. side and you receive it. Great. So it's not like we've got 2 years of experience. We've probably got 15 years of experience just between the two of us in logistics. But we had to just tweak a few things specifically for this business model when we first got started.
John, by the way, yes, we are recording this, so if you missed the first part, you'll be able to watch the replay. Dominic, what did you mean by picture or it didn't happen? Are you saying, and maybe you were talking to somebody else, but are you saying that unless you take a picture of it and have proof that something didn't happen? If that's the case, explain what you mean.
I probably, if it happened and I got a comment for that, I probably do have a picture of it somewhere.
Greg wants to know, this is a timely question. Can you comment on Livingston International? Is that a shipping company?
I do not know who they are. So I will also say this. There are a lot of people that advertise they're a shipping company. So, yeah. I'm sure my wife has some of those pictures. So,
whoops. Sorry.
A lot of these shipping companies are not real companies. Okay. Like Freightos is a big one that's advertising to Amazon sellers. They're not a shipper. They just line things up. Okay. So there are a lot of companies out there that don't actually own the ships, which is perfectly fine. Use them. They're basically brokers. When it comes to actual ocean shippers, there's probably only 20 big ones in the world, that we would regularly see. You remember Captain Phillips, the movie, the Somali pirate deal, the Maersk, Alabama?
Yeah.
Maersk is a shipping line that I absolutely love. The most professional, the best, consistent rates.
I've heard of those guys. I see their trucks running around too.
Their trucks all the time. Yeah, Maersk is a big one that we have a really good relationship with.
What about Robinson? Have you heard of those guys? Do logistics? C.H. Robinson.
Oh yeah. They're a big they're a big company. They are.
Yeah. Buddy of mine, his wife works there.
So a lot of companies, might only run routes from the Middle East to the U.S. and they don't do anything from China. So people will say, "Hey, can we?" Dominic killing me. So they'll say, "Hey, can you run this shipping company?" And I'll look them up, and they're massive, but they only run from Dubai to Europe to New York. So we can't catch them from China to the U.S.
Okay. He want to know what the name of your shipping company is. It's Hickory Flats. Is that correct?
Hickory Flats. Yep.
If you got if you want to put your URL in there, you're welcome to do that. Okay. Let's see.
If I can find and talk.
Carla says, "Do you source from only China?"
No. So this is one of the most exciting things that we're doing right now. So let me go through this private label thing, okay? And we haven't even got stuck on my whole idea of 5-star validated ideas suck. So let's talk on that for a minute, because I know there's some people in here that want to hear that. So in my top end view of helping other private label customers, I have found this crazy problem that I feel like I'm a crazy person because nobody of a lag. Okay. So when I say 5-star validated product, this is something that on paper looks really good. Okay. Maybe 2 years ago, 18 months ago, the hooded baby towel thing happened. Okay. You remember when that started ranking up and people were like whispering in quiet corners with their confidants, hey, these hooded baby towels, right? If you were one of the first people to launch a hooded baby towel, you're probably doing very well. But the way that people are taught in mainstream coaching circles right now to find a product to sell on Amazon is to basically see what other people are already doing. So you use a product like Jungle Scout and you find something that is getting a lot of sales, but maybe everybody else's listing isn't very good, or they only have a few reviews. So basically what you're trying to do is jump in and be number 11 or 12 or 13, okay? I don't want to over-criticize this because there are people making money doing this. I'm sharing with you basically something that I witness happening. It's an observation that concerns me, okay? So, I've even watched guys, some of these quote-unquote big names in the industry saying, hey, find something with 10 listings that are doing pretty well and run with it and try to be number 11. So what happens is if you're seeing this information, so is everybody else, okay? When the first person that saw the hooded baby towels, they looked at the listings and they said, hey, I can make these listings better. I can jump on this and ride this wave. But there are thousands of other people seeing this at the exact same moment. So what people do is they do a test order. They'd order 30 of these things from China. They test it. Well, you're still on month 2. It was probably going to test well. People get excited now. Hey, there's only 10 listings still out there. What they don't know is there are thousands of other people sourcing these and running their own tests and getting production samples going or production runs going and getting these things shipped by ocean. So by the time you come in with your production run, you're number 90, you're number 100 on this. The only way to compete is to have a much better product, which is sometimes hard, and be willing to spend a mountain of money on pay-per-click costs and trying to compete. And I see this constantly. So my opinion of 5-star validated products is that you should run away from them with as much speed as you could possibly gain. Because if you found a 5-star validated product, so has everybody else.
All right. Well, here's what you got to do, though. You've got to explain to me what you mean by 5-star validated product. I almost didn't want to call the webinar, your 5-star validated products suck, because I wasn't sure what it was. And I literally had to ask you last night, what do you mean by that? So what you're saying is all the parameters that all these companies use.
The checklist checks off. It's small and light. It's not an electronic. There's a lot of trending searches for this, through Google AdWords and stuff like this. People are looking for it, but there's only 12 listings. And of those 12 listings, most of them only have 2 pictures and they're not very good. If you look at Jungle Scout, the new relaunched Jungle Scout has a listing quality indicator where they'll say, hey, of these 10 sellers, 9 of them, their listings are terrible, which indicates you should be able to jump on this. But theoretically, you should. You should be able to come up with a better listing, a better product, maybe a slight variation. Yeah, Carla, you're right. They give you literally a star. Viral Launch will give you a star. The problem is, again, there are thousands of other people going through the same method to find products. They're seeing the 5-star thing as well. They are also sharing this information. There's people that make money selling these ideas. Okay?
Or they go through Jungle Scout or whatever they're using, Viral Launch, scrape it for 10 ideas and then sell the 10 ideas as, hey, here's some products you can launch.
Exactly. So what I see time and time and time again is someone come to us for sourcing, and I'll say, sure, we can get that produced. And we'll start looking for a factory. And then a week later, 2 more people come to me for the same hooded baby towels. And 2 weeks later, someone else comes to me and I say, hey, hold on a second. I know this looks good, but I'm starting to get concerned. 3,
and you're 4, not a gigantic company either. So you got all these other shipping companies that are or sourcing companies that are getting the same kind of request.
If I get something like a hooded baby towel if I get 3 requests in 1 week, how many requests has Alibaba gotten? 10,000? 20,000? That's not an exaggeration. That's probably a legitimate number. So yes, exactly,
Yeah.
Carla.
Yeah, the barbecue gloves. I mean, oh my gosh.
Crazy.
So both of those came from two guys. One, the garlic press comes from Scott Volker because he used that as an example. But as people hear him use an example, new sellers just seem like, wow, I'll do that too. You froze up on me. You froze up on me. Repeat what you just said.
Well, I was going to say, let me go to a more recent one. The magnetic tile blocks, okay? The kids' toys that are magnets. Have you seen these things?
Yeah.
Okay. If one of you listening sells these things, I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings here.
Okay.
These things, okay? I was in Yiwu, China. I was walking around the market looking at the toys, and there's these awesome magnet tile blocks. And I'm sitting in like people's booths playing with these things, thinking, these are awesome. These are awesome. Came back to the U.S. and nobody was talking about them. I started getting a couple people say, hey, these have popped up. Can you source these? Of course I can source these. I have 3 factories that make these things custom. They started really taking off. Still this week, I got a request. Can you find magnet tile block toys? It has been 9 months since that craze was, in its infancy. I have people that we sourced for that I warned them. I have one specific customer. I hope they're not on here. And I said, you don't want to get into this. I said, you're asking about this now, but 4 months ago, we started production runs for other clients. They said, it's okay. We're going to bundle it differently. We're going to have a different box. We're going to do it better. I said, okay. I said, if you are absolutely certain that you're not going to take my advice, again, sometimes I'm a bad businessman. I should just sell it. I said, we'll do this for you and we'll get this production run done. And right now they're sitting on, 4,000 units of magnet block toys that they won't sell this Christmas because they're on page 70 and the pay-per-click cost is up to like $4 a click on those keywords right now. It's insanity.
What about fidget spinners?
Listen, let me tell you a story about fidget spinners. I was in China 2 years ago. I'm walking around a giant market and I see all these little Chinese kids playing with these crazy little toys. What are these insane things? I'd never seen them. I'd never heard of them. They didn't call them fidget spinners. We went to a couple markets where some people were trying to sell these things. And they were kind of cool, but I said, nobody's going to buy this crap. Who's going to buy this mess? If only I had the foresight to say, sure, I'll buy a pallet of these things or 6 boxes and see what happens. I'd be one of those guys that was sitting on the beach right now because I made $6 million last year selling fidget spinners. And I know 2 guys that did that. They got into the first wave. Believe it or not, I still have people every month right now contacting and saying, do you have a good contact that can manufacture fidget spinners? Dude, you can buy them for $1 in every gas station on every street corner in the U.S. because everybody's liquidating. Don't buy fidget spinners. So I know that's extreme, but my point is I'm still getting inquiries for 5-star validated products that we started sourcing for other clients 3 and 4 months before.
All right, I'm going to ask you a tough question here. I kind of kid about I question my guests with the brutality of a prosecuting attorney and the persistence of an investigative reporter, and maybe even with the probing finger of a proctologist. I don't know. That's what my buddy said.
We're on a website, not real life.
That's what my buddy told me. He was joking when I said, no, I don't think I'm going to go that deep, but no pun intended. But I do have to ask you a tough question. How is it that if I can use you as a shipper, but I also use you as a sourcer, how does that not become a conflict of interest where you're hearing the products that I'm looking for? I mean, I'd be saying if I come to you with a good product, how am I going to know that you're not just going to go source it for yourself?
So here's a short answer. It's easy to get caught doing that. And there are other suppliers who have done that, who claim to be sourcing agents and then go out and just rip off everybody's idea. Think of these software companies like Viral Launch and Jungle Scout and Seller Labs. Everybody has this information. But if you do it once, you're hosed.
Oh, I know somebody who has done it, that keyword inspector guy.
Yep, and look what happened to him. the story went viral and it was instantaneous death for his company. If I do this to one person, not only, let me go back, I can't sleep at night if I were to do something like this. All right, it would drive me insane. But let's say I had no morals, I was just strictly in it for the business, and I wanted to steal ideas. If I got caught once, it's going to be on social media, because we're on social media now. This is how we all interact. This is how everybody knows each other. We go to these conferences, we network. 3 Facebook groups say, hey, those jokers at Hickory Flats robbed my idea. I'm done. And you can track that stuff. You can find out who's selling what, if you can dig in. The other thing is, there are so many crazy ideas going on right now. How would I even begin to copy somebody? How do I pick which one to copy? Right? So the short answer is, my business would suffer beyond repair if we did it a single time. But the other thing is, I really have a passion for watching people succeed, which is why I warn people. I'm crazy. I should be selling fidget spinners like crazy, but I won't sell them to anybody. I won't source them. I won't do any of that because I don't want to see people get hurt. But The other thing is, it would completely kill the company. We can't get away with it. Just like the keyword inspector guy. Think about how many great ideas Viral Launch has, or Amaze Owl, right? Amaze Owl is another awesome tool that validates.
I've always wondered about that. What's to keep those guys that sell the tools from using it as their own personal, data mine to come up with?
So I'm sure somewhere out there somebody's doing it. It's certainly not us. We also, all of our clients get a signed non-disclosure agreement that basically says we're not going to compete with your product. We're not going to sell your product idea to anybody. It's yours. The best thing is just relationships. If anybody, ever wonders how we operate like that, we'll put you in touch with a ton of people to go out and give you referrals and say, hey, these guys have always treated us right. We've never had an issue with them. So the question comes up, all right, if the 5-star validated ideas suck, what do we do? I hate the term private label. I hate it with a passion.
Really?
I use it because everybody's familiar with private label. And let me tell you where this started. I was at a conference in Seattle about a year and a half ago. And I'm sitting in a conference, and I'm at this roundtable discussion, and there's all these seasoned vet sellers, and there's a couple new sellers, and some lady says, what is private label? And this loudmouth from the UK steps up. I can't do his accent, or I would, but he said, private label is where you buy something generic from China and you slap a label on it. And I was like, I'm going to crawl across this table. I'm going to slap you, because this is not helpful information. You are ruining people's business, because this is not a long-term way to make money. Are there people making money doing this? Absolutely. Are there people that are losing money on it? Much more so. Okay? Because even if you have a short run, people are going to follow in and they're going to jump all over this. If you can get on the first page of a highly ranking keyword, to stay there, you're going to spend a mountain of money to stay there, because other people are turning their cannons at you, firing the biggest bullets that they can muster, and they're trying to knock you off that first page, right? So it's extremely tough to win that way. So my opinion is you have to be the first, okay? Not the 10th, not the 70th, the first. You've got to completely differentiate your product by being unique, by inventing something, by coming up with something nobody can copy, or you have to tell a story, okay? So let me briefly go over the first one. The first one is what I call the Yeti principle, okay? The Yeti principle is the principle that states that there are products out there that nobody's selling on Amazon yet. They're amazing products that are white label. You can copy them. You're going to be the first. The reason I call it the Yeti principle is you're familiar with the Yeti cup. I'm watching you drink a knockoff of a Yeti cup. Or is that the original Yeti?
No, that's a knockoff. I showed it to you before.
So it's a knockoff.
Yeah.
So Yeti, these guys in Texas, they're making this amazing.
Something. It's got a little mountain.
Yeah. So these guys in Texas are making this most amazing cooler ever, this Yeti cooler. It's a $400 cooler. I got one in my garage. And they're in China sourcing product parts for their coolers. And they go to a market, and they see this insanely cool stainless steel cup. Wow, this is really cool. Let's bring some back for our employees. So they buy like 200 of these stainless steel tumblers that are shaped like a Tervis tumbler, you know, double-walled plastic cups that have been popular for about 10 years now. They take them back and they find out, holy cow, these things hold ice all day long, okay? So they said, maybe we can bring these in, we can stamp them with our logo on, and we can sell them. In 2015, I remember people standing in line at Dick's Sporting Goods here in Huntsville, Alabama, dying to get one. If they would bring in a pallet, they'd sell out in minutes.
That's just crazy right there.
And they were selling for $49.99. I have been in 2 of the 3 factories that Yeti contracts in China, and they will sell me a cup with a Yeti logo, with a Yeti lid, with a Yeti sleeve for less than $1.
Yeah,
Their
but
production cost is nothing.
But that's that's fraud.
It's counterfeit. I know, but my point is, Yeti is probably paying 60 cents a piece for these cups, and they're paying another 50 cents to ship.
They don't have a patent on it then. They just have
It's not patented. So this is my idea. The Yeti principle is that there are a million Yetis stuck on the bottom shelf somewhere waiting to be found. Okay? Let's go back to the fidget spinner. The fidget spinner was a Yeti. The lady that invented the fidget spinner for autistic kids, I can't remember exactly, 15 years ago, she patented these things, but she didn't know how to sell them. When it came time to renew her patent, she let it expire. Okay? There was a lady that had a patent on the fidget spinner, and she let it expire because it wasn't selling. Maybe it was ahead of its time. Maybe she didn't put it in front of the right people. It didn't go viral. A million different reasons. But this fidget spinner was a Yeti sitting on a shelf somewhere waiting for someone to find it.
Well, I'm gonna tell you a story that's similar to that. I don't know. Back in the '60s, there was a guy that made a lot of money on toys. You ever heard of the Spud gun?
Oh yeah.
You take the gun and stick it into a potato and then shoot the plug. That was the guy owned the patent on it, and this guy was good at looking and finding toys that had been patented. And then, of course, most of those guys that invent don't know how to market. So he went to the guy, found the guy that had the original patent, and said, "Hey, do you have any equipment for these?" He goes, "Yeah, I've got a bunch of stuff in my basement. I never was able to sell them." I think he bought all of the molds to make them for like $600 or something crazy. But then he started putting them in the back of comic books and sold a buttload of them. Same thing for the ant farm, and that's what this guy did. He was a pro at finding products that patents were about to expire or had expired, or maybe they weren't expired yet, but he'd get the exclusive marketing right to, just because these people don't know how to sell.
So that's my philosophy. Is there are a million Yetis out there. The way to find those is go to China, walk through Yiwu. Dominic, your question: do we take clients to China? Absolutely. We've got a trip coming up at the end of March, right after Chinese New Year, where we take a small group. We basically limit it to 20 people because we don't want to be in these massive groups. It's just a complete nightmare to manage, and people are walking all over each other. We teach you how to search for the Yeti, how to buy a small order quantity to test it. The best products are the ones that aren't on Amazon. I've got a really good friend of mine. He's now a business partner and client. Business partner and a client and friend, that he went to Yiwu 2 years ago, and he walked around and he would see these cool ideas and he'd say, "I wonder if this sells." He would go back to his hotel room at night, look it up on Jungle Scout. Oh, it's not even on Amazon. This must be a bad idea.
Well, see, I used to think that too.
Yes, it's insanity. If it's not on Amazon, try it. Be the first. Be the Yeti. All right. The reason we're still calling it the Yeti is everybody knows of it as the Yeti.
But let me give you here's the chicken or the egg question on this, though, is if it's not on there, how does people know to search for it?
So you run tests and you find out related products. You run pay-per-clicks with keywords. You can direct people to your product. That's easy. Okay. If there are really, really obscure things, that nobody knows to search for it, you can do things like Facebook marketing. You can do things like external off Amazon marketing to draw attention to this and drive you to it. But something like the Yeti mug, people are searching for an insulated cup. Okay, they just don't know the Yeti mug exists. So you can definitely point people in that direction. I love going to flea markets. Okay, everybody has a flea market in them. There are crazy hillbillies that make some really cool stuff. And there's some hillbilly somewhere sitting in his garage making a really cool little thing, and they're going to put it on a table at a flea market and hope to sell 10 of them.
Are you talking about like a craft?
I'm talking, yes. I'm talking about a craft. I'm talking about a new tool. I'm talking about just a gizmo, a widget, right?
Do you know Teresa Rose from? She was at the CES conference. She's the one that spoke about wholesale, and she had some good information about wholesale. And she said that's how she gets all of her products. She just finds a wholesaler online and looks at their product line. And she said, I look for stuff that I don't see on Amazon. And that's all she does do. And she does wholesale. And she doesn't, I mean, I guess you could call it like white label or whatever, but she's not sourcing it from China. She's sourcing it here in the U.S. But if she can find a small factory that has some kind of doodad that's not on Amazon, then she swoops in on it. That's what she says she likes to do. Yes. I'm going to have her on, by the way. She's going to be a guest in the future, guys. Teresa Rose.
So that's my similar philosophy to private label. The reason I like a private product, not private label, is because the profit margins are higher. You can scale faster, and you can usually get some alterations done, and you're building your own brand. If you're wholesaling something, you're typically building their brand. Okay.
JB, do you mind if I brought JB in the room with us for a minute and ask him to tell us about his exotic pet product?
If he wants to.
JB, you want to come in the room? I can bring you in. If you've got a mic, you don't have to have a camera, but if you at least have a mic, we can hear you. Give us a thumbs up if you want to come in to the room.
So while he's deciding, okay. I'll keep going. Life hack blogs. You guys ever looked at those?
What?
Life hack blogs.
Yeah, Life Hacker Life Hacker, the name of one of them.
Dude, I love those for private label ideas.
JB, real quick. JB, when you get this invite, you're going to have to click about 4 times to test your audio and video. Just keep clicking through it and hit enter. All right, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So life hacks are products that have a purpose. They serve a purpose. They're needed. They're easy to produce because people are making these things out of tennis balls, paper clips and jars in their house. So you can easily manufacture these things. But the people that are putting these life hack blogs are trying to sell, clicks on the idea, but they're not actually making the products. Life hack blogs, go through 30 websites of life hacks and you will find 20 products. You go, oh man, that's a private label idea. It's easy to produce. It serves a purpose. It's usually cheap. And you can probably get something similar to test it to make sure the idea, is validated. So there are Yetis essentially everywhere, but you have to quit starting on Amazon. Everybody that wants to launch a private label business, they say, what's the first URL you type in? Amazon. I'm like, stop going to Amazon to find a product for Amazon. You're looking at what other people are doing. Jungle Scout should be the 7th tool that you use to take on an idea. It's purely insanity, in my opinion.
All right, so JB's in the room. We've got him silhouetted to protect his identity, I guess. So can you say something, JB? You got to unmute your mic. I think you have to go to the top of the screen and click on turn your microphone on. Hello?
Hey, guys. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, how are you? Hey, so, I thought the same thing. Tim and I talked a while back, and I'm actually going to be going to China with him. And cool. A lot of what he was saying resonated with me just at the time. And I thought, this is only 6 months in for me, and we did some private label, white labels, similarly to what Tim talked about, where you take an item and you just kind of, maybe make a small change or even take it as is and take it out of the package and then put your own on it. You try to optimize a listing or what have you. And same thing, we'd have some success, but then 8 or 9 people would do the same thing and you kind of get in and out. Well, I always thought that, I can't tell you how many times I'd look for something that I would see in a little random place on Amazon, and I wouldn't see it on there, and I would immediately dismiss it. I guess that's just not a good option for Amazon. And I don't know why I thought that, because I probably wouldn't think that way in any other business that I have. But with Amazon, I did. So my mother lives with us. She's disabled. She lives downstairs, and she's from New England, and she has this dog. She loves this dog, and this dog has to have these very particular treats. And the treats, you can only get them from one place that makes them. And there's a particular natural resource that is required to make these little treats, and they're expensive. retail, I think a box of them, probably 50 or 60 of them, it's about $35-$40. They're not inexpensive. But so she's getting them, and she kept saying to me, knowing that I was on Amazon, hey, you really should look at these and try to sell them on Amazon. And one, it's your mom and of a certain generation, you say, well, what do you know about Amazon? So I said, you know what, though, I'm going to scan these darn things one day. And I did. I scanned them, and they didn't show up. So I'm like, all right, that's a no-go on Amazon. Well, long story short, a few weeks ago, actually probably about 6 now, for some reason, I decided that, you know what, I'm going to try it again. And I called the company, and one of those deals where, I think the owner of the company, it was the answer to the phone. And we were talking, and he said, yeah, we tried Amazon before, but didn't really work. And I said, well, why didn't it work? And he's like, well, we kind of just took some pictures that they didn't like and wouldn't let us list it and just didn't bother. I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm going to try it. So I put it on there, and I even bought some retail. And I said, if you just let me try it, I'll buy retail from you. I'll try it. We'll see how it goes. And I put them up there, did a little description, and did take some good pictures, and I have a medical background, so I took a little bit of time to explain, what some of the benefits might be for a dog. And I sold all 10 of those things in 3 days.
Wow.
And it occurred to me right at that moment that there was a difference in.
Do you sell them for the same price you bought them for?
Oh, no. I marked it up by, it was only about $10. I wasn't trying to make a profit here, but I wanted to cover some of my shipping. So, marked them up by $10 from retail, what I paid, and then sold all 10 of them. And what I took from that wasn't necessarily that I want to build a giant pet company. It was that there's a lot of opportunity. And I think, Tim, you're onto something. I think there's a lot of opportunity in products that they're just not on there yet. The ones that are there, oftentimes Jungle Scout or all these other, services, there's just so many folks out there right now jumping into this game. And that is becoming, in a way, low-hanging fruit, because there's only so many searches. Can you find a search that maybe someone else didn't think of? Yeah, of course you can. But to me, it makes more sense to just, and this is old school, but here's what I did last week. I drove around Atlanta, and I started just checking on local businesses that, and because of where I am, it's easier, but strip malls or industrial complexes, and literally just cold calling, walking in and saying hello to folks and meeting people and finding out, hey, what do you sell? Where do you sell it? And 3 or 4 different product ideas I came up with from there that just weren't on Amazon. So that's all I'm looking for now, is products that just aren't on Amazon, or maybe they're on Amazon, but not in the way that it seems like people would want to buy them. So it's too early to tell if this is the next way to make a ton of money and to build a huge business. But building a brand, as I think John Bullard's on here too. Hey, John, as he mentioned, is spot on. So you're building a brand that differentiates you as a company, and then you can do some things with the product. But yeah, man, I tell you, you nailed it with that comment, because a month ago, I would, probably 6 weeks ago, I would have said you're crazy. If it's not on Amazon, why waste your time? But man, I tell you, and for me, I'll tell you what it was. Maybe some folks on this can relate. For me, it was intimidation, because the thing I like doing the least is building listings. I don't like doing it. I don't enjoy it. But when I figured out that you can pay people to do that, and they do a better job than you do, and you can just kind of begin to think of yourself as a detective trying to find these products, yeah, I think there's something there.
Well, the way my interviews go, we're an hour and 18 in, and I can guarantee you there's people that are already left early. I think we had about 38. So there's 4 or 5 people who've left already. They just missed some major bullets. What you just came across, what you just basically laid down on us, Tim, is, and JB here is confirming it. And JB, I'm kicking you out of the room now. Appreciate you coming on. But the fact is that, what happened to you, Tim? Where'd you go, Tim? I can't see you.
I'm here.
Oh, okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. So that was worth, to me, that was worth the price of entry on this webinar tonight. Is that kind of idea? Is that John Bullard there? The John Senior, or John that's just private label is not easy? Is that you, John? Anyway, John Bullard has a show where he interviews successful sellers as well, and we cross paths at CES. he asked me to come on his show. And I'm like, I don't have anything to say, man. All I do is ask questions. You can come on my show and let me interview you. So, and you're going to be on. You're going to be on. You said you're going to be interviewed on Manny Coates' AM PM podcast. That's a very popular podcast right now. By the way, guys, I'm launching a podcast, but it's not anything special. Basically, I figured out that the audio from my interview should probably be published as a podcast. So that's going to happen coming up soon because we only have 30 something people here tonight. Normally we'd have over 100, but I'm sure I'll build the audience back up because we've got some really good interviews coming up. But
well, it's a good thing you started with a B-lister first.
Well, no, it's not that because I told you, brother, that you had enough information to go 2 times. So I'm going to bring you back on once we get the house rocking. But yeah, you're doing me a service. You're like a guinea pig. Got to get the word out there.
So let me go back to, I was talking about 3 things.
Okay.
Being the Yeti. So we're talking about how to succeed, in my opinion, in private label. And let me also back up and say the things people are doing now, sticking stickers on stuff, works. I'm thinking about 3 years from now because remember 5 years ago, people were crushing it doing retail arbitrage. Now those people are going, holy crap, we have to get out of retail arbitrage. Like it's so hard.
What's a job?
It's so competitive and there's so many other people doing it. I mean, it's a nightmare. So basically what I'm looking at is 3 years from now when everybody's put stickers on everything that they can possibly find. What is going to be the next thing? And the people that are already doing this right now are just slaughtering it. I've got clients that are finding the Yetis out there that are just killing it. I mean, JB's walking into random businesses that he doesn't know what they even have in there and just looks around and gets ideas. I mean, that's genius. That's what I'm talking about. So the second thing, what was the second thing I said? Third one was tell a story. I can't remember what the second one was. It's after 9 p.m. It's after my bedtime. So let's go to tell a story. So, in launching private label, and I'll give you a good example. I had a client come to me not long ago that said, we want to sell bandana baby bibs on Amazon. Okay, have you seen these? They were one of those hooded baby towel magnet blocks, that was trending. It's just a baby bib that's shaped like a triangle. It looks like a Western bandana or something. For a while, they were a 5-star validated product. Okay, well, they came to me at month 5 of the 5-star validation. I said, you don't want to sell those things. But what's interesting was I met this guy in Guatemala where he lives. I was having dinner with him. And I was sitting there at dinner and I'm thinking, wait a second. Let's think about Tom's shoes. Okay. Are you familiar with Tom's shoes?
Yeah. My daughter buys them.
They're a $1 to produce pair of shoes. They're not that comfortable in my opinion, but they sell because they tell a story. Buy a pair, we give a pair. Okay.
Right.
All right. So yes, Carla, baby bibs are saturated. So I even pulled up the information for them. I said, you don't want to sell these things. And they wanted them produced in China. I said, you don't want to sell these things. I said, look, here's the data. Here's 32 listings on the first 3 pages where they're selling for $9.99. I said, when you have these things produced and shipped, you're making a penny on them. I said, you're going to be on page 70. But then I started thinking, I said, we are in Central America. They make textile goods by hand here. This is a fair wage, fair trade gold mine. So I started working with them and I said, you need to launch a brand that's made in Guatemala. Don't source this stuff in China. I said, be the Tom Shoes of bandana baby bibs, right? Central America, the labor prices are very, very low. You can get goods produced there for sometimes even cheaper than China, depending on what the product category is. Now, the categories are limited. You've got to stick with textiles. You've got to stick with wood. You've got to stick with clays. You've got to stick with leather, right? Ceramics sometimes. I just found out last week when I was down there, you can get ceramics. You're not going to get injection mold plastic. You're not going to get CNC'd stainless steel, all right? It's just not that industrialized. But I started thinking, and I told them, I said, why don't you have like a co-op of women here that can sew these things, even if they have 1950s sewing machines and they're sitting out behind their houses, just trying to make a living for their family. This does several things. One, it gets you a product that's produced inexpensively, but you can have it produced by them for a wage that's higher than they would normally collect from doing work locally because that, the economy's better here. We can demand higher prices. So you have a product that's inexpensive to produce. You have a crazy emotional connection. Okay. What if you put those things on Facebook? And the Facebook ad doesn't say, hey, buy our bandana bibs. We say, look at the story of these 5 women in this community up in the mountains that are using 1950s sewing machines that were bought from Goodwill in Miami and shipped down in a container, and they're making these bandana bibs. They're now providing a better life for their family and their children than they've ever been able to provide. Okay? They're making 3 times a month. You as a seller can sell those bandana bibs that on Amazon are $9.99 for $29.99 or $19.99 for a pack of 3, right? People will spend $30 for a gift, but if you're buying a baby shower present for a friend, are you going to pay $10? You're going to pay $30. You're probably going to pay $30. And you put that thing in some killer packaging, and you have an insert card that tells the story of this co-op of women that are producing these. You're the Tom Shoes, okay? Yep. So last week, I was in Guatemala finishing a project that I started a year ago. We now officially have a licensed company down in Guatemala, and we're doing 2 things. One is we're helping, producers and entrepreneurs in Guatemala ship their goods in. Like, there's a lot of people that want to ship coffee, and it's not just e-commerce platforms. It's, they're selling to boutique grocery stores and stuff like that. So we're setting up the same logistics chain that we have from China to the U.S. We're doing it from Central America to the U.S. And we can now basically operate in El Salvador, Honduras, Costa Rica, Guatemala. All of those Central American companies, they have a free trade agreement across the border. So if you're in Tegucigalpa, Honduras, and you have something that you want to bring to the U.S., we can pick it up and we can ship it for you.
So how did you get in? How did you get into the Guatemala area?
So I've been in Central America doing like relief mission type work since college, really. So I've always had kind of a piece in my heart for that area of the world. I literally was up in the middle of the night trying to get hickory flats off the ground, couldn't sleep at 2 a.m. And I pulled up Facebook and I looked in one of these big seller groups, and there's a guy who says, I'm trying to ship this stuff from China to the U.S. I don't live in the U.S. How on earth can we get this goods into the U.S. if I'm not an importer? And I texted back. I said, I'll private message you. I can import for you. Turns out this guy was in Guatemala. He is one of my favorite customers now. He is a business partner. We started another Amazon account, just he and I. And he's also become a very good friend of mine. So I started going down with him, and I found out there are mountains of opportunities down here. And I started working with young entrepreneurs. I was there last week, and I had all these meetings with these 25, 26, 30-year-old entrepreneurs that have Amazon businesses that are connecting, connecting buyers from, Europe now. They're shipping into Europe with local handmade stuff, but the market's massive. It's not saturated. So the big thing that I'm trying to do that is so exciting is I'm connecting e-commerce sellers in the U.S. to producers in Central America. Okay. So instead of getting your goods produced in China, let's find a category of goods that can be produced there. And instead of selling a $9.99 set of baby bibs, let's sell a $29.99 pair of baby bibs, right?
Yeah, I want to address what Sarah had to say here, because Sarah brings up a valid point. She's like, well, it's an interesting idea to go for the emotional sell on a platform like Amazon. It seems like it would be a lot of brand building. It would be brand building, but you don't have to build you don't have to build the sell or the story on Amazon. That would be a perfect product that you could advertise on Facebook and tell the story on Facebook, and using video and lead them to Amazon and create a brand. There's a guy that did that with we were at the CES Orlando conference, and they took a little toy laser gun that anybody could have bought off of Alibaba. I mean,
white label.
It was white label. And he's built a $20 million toy brand out of it by advertising on Facebook, almost exclusively advertising on Facebook with cheesy videos that he shoots from his iPhone. So we're going to have people on board talking about that. That's one of the things that when I'm making a few changes. I don't think everybody wants to just be a Amazon private label. I think a lot of private label sellers on Amazon are like, well, let's open a Shopify a store.
Yes. Get off of Amazon, because Amazon, you're playing by their rules. It's a low-hanging fruit, but you also
don't get off of it, but at least go extend from it.
Yes, not be dependent on it.
Yeah, don't be dependent on it. Do Instagram and Pinterest and all that stuff.
Etsy, you can get on all those places. So last week I was in Guatemala. I had 2 clients. They don't even sell e-commerce. They have no interest in it, but they have basically purchase orders from large retail stores for very high-end men's leather goods. I'm talking about duffel bags, luggage, briefcases, portfolios, really nice stuff. And they want to have these goods produced in Guatemala. So we went from anywhere from the locations where they're skinning cows and drying out the leather to where they're actually tanning the leather with these vegetable oil products. I had no idea until last week what it took to make good leather. This stuff's amazing. I brought my wife back a purse from one of these local artisans, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, look at this leather." And I was like, "I know. It's amazing. Phenomenal." The prices are inexpensive down there for our standards, but you're getting some of the best workmanship in the world. You're getting some of the best material in the world. And when they launch this brand, we're going to have video footage of driving through these little towns like Chichicastenango and Antigua and Pastores, and these little villages that are just picturesque, and going into these little warehouses where people are changing their lineage because they now have a scalable product that they can start producing, and they're tapping into the U.S. economy. Okay,
right.
On the back end, these guys that are building this, they've got video footage of all of this. They've got pictures. They've got the stories. They're taking a little bit of whatever they intend to do and turning around and putting it back into those communities directly. And that's one thing that we are facilitating and that we require. If a client comes to us and says, "We want to use your Guatemalan contacts to build our private label brand, will you help us?" Yes, we will. But we're going to require you to give back to the story, okay? Going to give back to the story. Tanya's upset now. Give back to the story. So as opposed to just using that story for their gain, which a lot of people do. A lot of people go into these third world countries and they try to use the advertising and the marketing ability, but don't give back. We're going to require you to actually give back, which is going to help you because we're going to tell that story too. So now we're going to have content for you through your Facebook channels and other, how you gave a proceeds, these portions back to this community, which is able to, put kids back in school. Just amazing stuff. So launching your product, find the Yeti, tell the story. I still can't remember what the second one was that I mentioned. But
do you know if they actually skin the cows alive?
Yeah, they're not skinning them alive. They're taking meat cows. Yeah, sorry, okay. Tanya. I guess so they're taking meat cows and pulling the hides off of them. But my point is, they are anxious and willing to work.
Right.
And for some of those niche products like wood, think of home decor. All of these, the pallet signs and all the stuff that hangs on your walls. People are importing those from China right now. They're selling them dirt cheap. Why don't we get those things produced in carpentry shops in Central America? It's cheaper to ship, and you can tell that story. There are a million ideas out there. And I've got clients that are doing this, same thing, and I'm not even afraid to tell it because the market is so huge. It's not going to be saturated for 10 years, right? So tell that story and get off of not get off of Amazon, but don't be dependent on Amazon, and tell that story on Amazon platforms.
Let's go back to China. You're saying you're going to take some folks to China. What do you normally do, and what does it usually cost to do that?
So there are so I actually used to do this for free. So if someone called and said, "Hey, I want to go to China, can you do that?" It's like, "Sure, I'm going next month. Tag along with me." Well, what I found out is to do this well, it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of commitment, and it takes a lot of teaching. So there's also some huge groups out there. There's one that takes like 200 people to Yiwu, which is just, I can't imagine the logistical nightmare of that. But also, people don't have realistic expectations of what a place like Yiwu is. People hear of this 80,000 sellers under one roof. Absolutely true. Sometimes the year it's 100,000, okay? Literally 100,000 sellers under one roof. Completely ridiculous. They are not factories. In fact, there's a union type organization that keeps factories out of there because the resellers basically have monopoly of this thing. So what happens is people go to China and they think they're going to go to a factory. You don't want to go to a factory unless you already have a brand built of one product and you're ready to outsource the manufacturing, okay? Ewu is amazing for finding the Yeti, okay? You can literally walk through 3,000 to 4,000 to 5,000 individual stores in one day and look on the bottom shelves and the corners and look for something new that a Chinese manufacturer's popped up with and created and they don't know how to sell it.
Time out.
Okay.
So literally, this is like U.S. shelving where the primo product that has a brand recognition is going to be eye level, and whatever's on the bottom shelf is either it's a little known product that doesn't sell much, doesn't have any name recognition. It's the Yeti. Are you telling me that literally the bottom shelves in the corners are where you'll find these things?
The Yeti was produced 15 years ago by a guy in Australia that had a camping goods company, okay? He saw the Tervis tumblers doing well in the U.S. He said, let's make that out of stainless steel. You can beat it up. It won't get, abused like a plastic wood for the outback in Australia. He literally was producing that. Someone in the factory said, hey, let's send this to our supplier or our reseller in Ewu and see if, someone jumps on it. Wow. The guys in Yeti literally found this at a market in China on a bottom shelf and launched it, and we all call it the Yeti now, right? Your cup that you're drinking from is not a Yeti, but we refer to it as the Yeti. So yes, in Ewu you can do this. Now, back to my China trip. I'm trying to manage expectations. These aren't factories you're visiting, they're resellers. There is a huge advantage to using them. You can find the Yeti, but you can also find maybe not the Yeti. You find a more average, mundane product, but you can buy it in a small order quantity and test it, okay? Because you don't want to go 3,000 units deep in something to try. You want to go 50 units deep. If you contact a factory directly, they're not going to sell you 50 units. They're going to have a minimum order quantity of 10,000 or 1,000 or 500 something. But Ewu, you can buy this. So literally after a 3-day trip, you can have a spreadsheet with 50 product ideas, and you can buy a small amount of all of them and then run like a pay-per-click data mining, investigation, something like that, and test it online. So that's what Ewu is. So on our China trips, we're going big. We're going for 8 days. Dominic, if you're still in here, here's the pitch. You cannot show up to China and get to work on day one. Absolutely impossible. I've been to China a lot. I do it.
Jet lag,
just travel, especially your first or second or third time there, you're still kind of overwhelmed. You cannot get to work. When I leave at 6 a.m. I catch a flight usually in Dallas or Chicago. I fly 16 hours, and I can't sleep on a plane. And even if I can, it's not restful. Landing at 4 or 5 p.m. in Shanghai, and then, that night you don't sleep well. Well, you've been basically not sleeping for 24 hours. How are you going to get to work? So on our China trip, what we're doing is we're leaving March 1st in the U.S. We land the evening of March 2nd. We're limiting this to 20 people. That's it. I've taken groups. We can handle it. I've got all the staff infrastructure in place. Limiting it to 20 people. We're going to spend our first full day in Shanghai absolutely relaxing. Okay, we're going to go see some sites. We're going to go to one of the most world famous Buddha temples and check it out just because it's really cool to see. We're going to go to underground counterfeit market, and you can buy Beats headphones for $30 a pair that are authentic. Just really cool. We're going to have some great meals, go visit, the Bund and all these sightseeings. But mostly what we're doing is that's our day to get acclimated and get ready to work. Also networking, because we're taking private label sellers. And as you know, Jake, from these conferences, the biggest thing you get out of it is the networking and the masterminding, and that, you don't have to share your product
collaboration.
Ideas. You can collaborate on ideas for selling, right? So it's going to be kind of a mastermind group mixed in. After a day in Shanghai, we will the next morning, so basically the second full morning, get on a bullet train, which is amazing if you've never experienced something like that. 300 kilometers an hour. We're riding first class to Ewu. Ewu, we're going to get there, so a little bit before lunch, and we're going to spend that day training. All right, I've got a conference room in a 5-star Marriott hotel. I've got a good friend who's at that hotel right now. He's basically texting me right now, giving me his updates. He's about to get out for the day and start shopping with some of my partners over there. we're going to have a conference, kind of a conference coaching day where myself and other people, some Chinese folks, some other US sellers, some other team leaders are going to explain how to use eWoo. Okay, because you going into this thing are going to be overwhelmed. You have to know what you're looking for, how to process that information, and then once you have those ideas, what to do with it afterwards, whether it's a week later or a month later or 6 months later. Okay, so we're going to be teaching. The next 3 full days, you're going to have a private personal translator assistant who lives in eWoo and lives in that market. If you say, I'm looking for this category, they're going to say, it's over here, and you're going to walk with them, the mile or whatever it is, or take a Uber or a cab or whatever's around at the backside, and you're going to see 3,000 vendors that could potentially have that product you're looking for. But what I recommend is don't go looking for a product. Just walk. Just say, I'm interested in toys. Let's go to the toy area, and there's going to be 7,000 to 10,000 toy vendors in one area, one floor of one building, and you're going to walk around and you're going to look at millions of toys and see if something pops out. Don't make the mistake that I did. When you see the magnet blocks and think, that's cool, buy 5 cases and test them. When you see the fidget spinner and you think, that's garbage, buy a case of them and see what happens, right? So now that I've made all these mistakes, I kind of want to teach people how to go about it now to find these ideas. So the China trip, we're also doing basically all-inclusive. I don't want people showing up and saying, oh, how much is my meal going to cost? Do I need to pay this translator? I've got to get a ride. No, you pay for your plane tickets. When you land, you're covered. We're going to cover everything. We're going to cover the sightseeing. We're going to cover your personal translators and assistants. We're going to cover all the training, the conference room rental. We're going to cover 3 meals a day. We're going to cover your train ride. We're going to cover, different vehicular transport that has to happen, all that stuff. So we're trying to basically take what I've been doing in the past for smaller groups, expand it a little bit, and add the mastermind element into it too. Because I've taken groups of, 5 or 6 people just myself, but I've got business partners over there. We've got an office over there. We've got people that aren't even associated directly with my business that I just know, that know China. They're going to come in and they're going to teach doing business with China, because after you visit eWoo and you get your 20 ideas and you check 10 of them and 5 of them are good, you don't go back to eWoo and shop. This isn't a factory direct supplier. Now that you've tested something and you know it's produced in China, you work through the process of tracking down that actual factory. So when you've tested your 50 units or 100 units, you know it's going to work. You're going to buy your 3,000, 5,000, 10,000 units and go big, but you're going to buy that from the actual factory itself.
Which you can typically get half price, like 50% off of what you typically would pay through someone on Alibaba. Is that
There's no rhyme or reason to it. It's all varying. Alibaba typically can be more expensive than you would expect. Christopher, no, we haven't even officially launched the advert for this. We've got people that have signed up, but we still have space. So you can get a hold of me at Hickory Flats, just on the website. If you're interested, I can give you a little more information about it. But here's the thing about Alibaba. It's a phone book. People think that Alibaba is a selling platform, and it's absolutely not.
It's Yellow Pages.
It's Yellow Pages. Jack Ma is a genius. I've studied him extensively, trying to figure out his business, because I'm doing business in China, but also just, what makes him tick. And he created a phone book, but he markets it as a selling platform, okay? You're familiar with the Better Business Bureau.
Yep.
Most people think that's a government agency.
It's like the Fed, privately owned.
The marketing was genius. Better Business Bureau. My first company was a construction company, and if I hacked somebody off because for whatever reason, they say, I'm going to contact the Better Business Bureau, I'd say, fine, contact the Better Business Bureau. They say, they're going to shut you down. I say, no, they're not. They're an advertising company. I say, no, they're not. It's the Better Business Bureau. I'd say, advertising company. But they marketed well. So Jack Ma and Alibaba have done that. So what people do is they think it's a selling platform that offers all these protections, which it sometimes does, sometimes doesn't. But really, you're dealing directly with the seller. 90%, it's estimated, 90% of the sellers on Alibaba are resellers that have never even touched the product, never even touched the product that they're selling, never even touched it. They upload a catalog from a factory and try to resell it. They're using stock images. I have been in Alibaba farms, cubicle farms in China, where there will be 4,000, I'm not kidding you, the scale over there is huge, 4,000 Alibaba sellers in one building in tiny little cubicles selling stuff they've never touched, and they're all 25 years old, and they're collecting money.
And they're all considered factories.
Yes, they all claim factories. I have been in a factory doing a factory tour. A film crew walks in, and they've got these little smocks, and they put smocks on the assembly line workers that have a different company name than the actual factory we're in. And I'm like, this is weird. They start filming it, right? Filming the production with these smocks that have a different factory name on them. My buddy and partner in China, he calls me back 2 months later. He's like, hey, check this out. And he sends me a link to an Alibaba page. It has a video of these people in these smocks.
And they see you in the background?
No, they wouldn't let me in it. But let's say the smocks say ABC China Company, China Corp, okay? And the seller the Alibaba profile is ABC Seller Corp. They're like, look, we're the actual factory. Well, all that happened is they filmed it. They paid the factory owner $100. They collected their smocks and they left.
So now they have factory. They have a
factory, okay? Alibaba can be useful, all right? There's a lot of people making a mountain of money off Alibaba, but you have to understand what it is. So to answer your question, they shoot high, okay? They're going to shoot high because they're getting so many inquiries. They're catching ridiculously overpriced purchases, and they don't care if they lose the ones that want to haggle with them too much. What happens a lot to us is we get a lot of inquiries for shipping and not just the sourcing. We get more for shipping. So I'll tell people, I'll say, hey, we'll ship your goods, no problem. Send me your pro forma invoice from your factory so we can get all the shipping information on it. We can get the HTS codes, we can get everything. They'll send me something and I'll look at it. I'll say, I think they're paying too much. I'll send it over to my China team and I'll say, hey guys, can you track down the factory? The next morning I look up and they're like, Tim, that was easy. Here's the factory. Said, by the way, we got quotes for these same things. They quoted us $3 a piece where that pro forma invoice says $4 or $4.50 or $5, right? So then what I do is I call the client back and said, look, I know you're wanting a shipping quote. You haven't placed your order yet. Let's make a deal. I'll say, we got these goods for $3. The best you could negotiate was $4 or $5. Let's split the difference. All right. So we'll buy them and sell them to you for $3.50. So you're making 50 cents more or $1 more, whatever the split is. And I said, plus you don't have to deal with the factory. We'll deal with them directly. You just pay us in our U.S. office. So now we've saved them money. We took on responsibility for the production. We're dealing with all those factory contacts where they don't have to, and they're not wiring their money to an Alibaba reseller in Hong Kong through a personal power. Just basically paying a U.S. corporation, and if the deal goes south, they can track us down. They can call the Better Business Bureau, right? So to answer your question, we're seeing this all the time where Alibaba suppliers are quoting pretty high prices, and we can come in, basically backdoor the deal through our China office and figure out what the price would really be by actually contacting the factory directly.
That's cool. So are you, besides Guatemala and China, are you sourcing anywhere else?
So we're doing a little bit in India. I think that India is going to be the next China. I really do. India is really on tap to start making better products cheaper because they have a little bit more freedom because they're more of a capitalist economy. Okay. Now I know there's a lot of people that are going to argue with me on that. China is restricted, guys. When you walk in, you are in a communist country. Now they are starting to capitalize a little more. Every bank is owned mostly by the government. Every company shares ownership with the government. My business partner, Ron, bought a house in Shanghai. He bought it. It's his. In 70 years, the property reverts back to the government, and he has to buy it back from the government again. Right?
So, what do you think about JB's comment here? I feel confident that there's an Asia bubble coming in the next 10 years. The prices will go up as China gets a taste of the EPA regulation, and those folks develop a taste for middle-class wages. I'm intrigued by Latin America and even some down and out old U.S. manufacturing towns and maybe India. So is he on to something?
I think he is. And it's not just like the government controlling, but it's China's making a boatload of money. I see more exotic sports cars in a country town in China than I've ever seen in the U.S. I can be walking through a small town like Iwu, and there's McLaren F1s driving around because these guys are making a ton of money. If they're making a ton of money, they're driving their prices up because the demand is so high. Okay, they can demand that higher cost because they're so efficient. I think that they're going to outprice themselves. I think that the government is too much in control and there's too much instability, maybe. People all the time are ordering stuff and their factory rep calls them and says, "Oh, sorry, we got shut down for 4 weeks because of, an environmental regulation. They're just shutting us down." Right? India, because they are not government controlled, I think will build infrastructure better and faster. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I think that, the education in India is just as good as China. The technical ability, the pure number of engineers and high-end manufacturers is massive.
So they've got a lot of manufacturing there now.
Oh, yeah. But, not nearly the scale of India, but yes, a lot. The problem is the infrastructure and the quality expectations are not in place.
Who are you talking about? Who?
In India.
Oh, you said they have more stuff than India. So I thought, well, maybe you're already
China.
Okay.
China has more infrastructure than India.
Okay.
So, yes, I think job. And I think that at any time something crazy could happen. They don't let Google or Facebook in. What else are they going to pull the plug on? I used to use WhatsApp exclusively. WhatsApp, 2 weeks ago, I woke up. I couldn't get a hold of my partner through WhatsApp. I called him. He said, yeah, they just outlawed WhatsApp. And I was like, oh, my goodness, that's the biggest, texting platform in the world. And it's just gone, because the government decided to.
Is it WeChat that they use over there?
WeChat. So now I have to use WeChat. It's owned by a Chinese company, but it is censored and regulated, which I don't know how they do that on that scale. There's a billion people over there, but they do it. So JB, let me go back to U.S. manufacturing. Holy cow, is this a big opportunity? Okay. As import duties increase, as the anti-dumping list grows, as brand recognition and they want that name of U.S. made, I think it's going up. We have clients that will come to us and they'll say, hey, can you source this in China? And I'll actually come to them and I'll say, you know what? Here's a manufacturer in the U.S. that can do this. It's going to be a little bit more expensive, but you're going to be able to demand a higher price point. And they're jumping all over it. Central America is kind of the medium for that to me. You get the story, you get the hometown feel because Central America is the Americas, all right? I went down there the first time and I was talking America, and my buddy's like, what are you talking about America? He said, you realize we're America too. And I was like, okay, eyes opened, valid point. The U.S. is not the only America. Canada is still North America, right? So we're in the Americas in Central America, but it's an underdeveloped economy. They need work. They need jobs. The cost is extremely low. So if we were doing a woodworking project, let's say a home decor in the wood niche, it's going to cost a lot in the U.S., and maybe the market demand won't allow for that higher resale price, okay? Everybody says, bring jobs back to the U.S., bring jobs back to the U.S. We are bringing jobs back to the U.S. Every Amazon seller is a new job.
Yeah.
Yes. So just because manufacturing isn't all coming to the U.S. doesn't mean jobs aren't being created, okay? So that's another one of my high horses is we are jobs as well. I have some people that are like, oh, you're importing stuff from China. They're like, why can't you have that produced in the U.S.? I'll say, because if I have this good produced in the U.S., it's going to cost $30 where I can get it for $2 in China. If I have to pay $20 or $30 to have it produced here, I'm out of a job, okay? So at least I'm employing people in my warehouse packaging these goods, even if we're not manufacturing. If I have it produced in the U.S., the whole business goes under, okay?
I'm not sure what Mike means by this. Do you ever use H-1B visa sponsorship to ramp up for your jobs? Do you mean, Mike, hiring people from over there into your business over here, or using your – you got to probably explain what you mean.
So Central America is the medium between that, but there are products that maybe are heavy or hard to ship that U.S. producers can do much better for close to the same prices, and you get to advertise made in the USA, which is massive, huge opportunity. So JB, yes, the answer is yes.
Let's go ahead and see if we can answer this question. Alan asked us a long time ago, how do you get a government contract to sell products, or do you even know anything about that?
Go to fedbizops.com. Federal Business Opportunities. and you will see the most saturated market in the world. The company that I was working for that we got involved with that was kind of shoe-in through some other billion-dollar companies. I didn't start that company. Selling to the government is tough unless you're a minority business. If you are a minority service-disabled veteran living in a hub zone and you're a woman, you can get every government contract you want. But
minority contract status.
Plain old white boy like me, it would be really tough unless we already had an established business. So, Alan, I don't know if you're still on, but that's the answer to that.
Yes, Sarah, what you're talking about, Zai, whatever his name is, he basically just said that they're going to stretch their muscles, that they're looking to be more of a world player and a world power. So they're not getting more, they're not loosening up their political stance. They're actually clamping down, and it's probably going to affect pricing over there as well. Do you study the politics and how that can affect your business since you have an office there?
I don't, because I don't trust the news, and maybe I'm a skeptic, but the information we get right now can be so bad that I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. I wait till my business partner says, hey, this changed, and I'll go, okay, great. The North-South Korea thing right now. I know some people from South Korea that it's not even on the news. Like Kim Jong is, blowing up hydrogen bombs and lobbing missiles over Japan, and everybody's freaking out but the South Koreans, okay? I'm freaking out. That guy's a nut, and he's got nuclear bombs and ICBMs. But I think that some of the truth still applies, that maybe people freak out unnecessarily. So when it comes to the Chinese politics, even the stuff on the news, it's kind of like in the U.S. here. People are freaking out about it. People are getting on their soapbox. People are ranting and raving about stuff that probably isn't even going to, happen, or it's not relevant.
Let's just say there was some kind of, crazy stuff happening, and Kim Jong-un cracks off a nuclear weapon somewhere, whatever. The price of oil and gas goes through the roof, and shipping goes through the roof. Then guess what? Those old U.S. manufacturing plants will start reopening. You'll see distributed manufacturing. You'll see people with CNC machines in their garages making stuff, because now they can compete, because shipping is so expensive. They'll be able to get it to market cheaper, even though the product costs more.
But every crisis has an end. World War II disrupted global manufacturing, and it came back stronger than it had been previously, with new versions of the way to do things and new procedures. So I'm not worried about it. I'm not going to lose sleep over that. What I lose sleep over is if one of my clients gets a shipment held up in inspections and I'm dying to get that. Like, I'm worried about the stuff that I can control, the things that I have to worry about. China is great for what it is. I don't count on it for everything. That's how we really got our business launched, but I think there's a much larger world out there. I'm loving the Central America thing. I had a client in Orlando contact me, and she walked up to me. She said, I want to create this product. Can you find a supplier in China? I did find a supplier in China, and we could make a really, really good connection there and make money. But you know what? I did some homework one night, and I found a supplier that makes the exact same thing here in the U.S. for nearly the same price. And I just sent her an email. I said, here's the factory. They're up in New Jersey. Contact them. Like get this done. So there are opportunities every day, to make stuff in the U.S. already, which is, I think, really cool.
Well, there's a lot of Yetis hanging out in the U.S. Like you say, the hack
markets,
Life Hacker, and small manufacturing plants right around where you live.
Go to ASD in Vegas in March. ASD Vegas, one of the largest trade shows in the country. Go to Atlanta America's Mart. Okay, sorry JB, I'm stepping on your home turf there, but go to those large markets. Go to trade shows. Okay, there are crazy niche trade shows all over the country every day. If you're not into hunting and fishing, go to a hunting and fishing expo, because some crazy hillbilly somewhere has created the next best fishing rod and doesn't know how to sell it.
Bait.
And he probably hasn't patented it. He probably has no idea what he has. Or if he has patented it, he would love for you to sell it online for him. Hey, I'll be your online exclusive Amazon distributor. I'll, make all your dreams come true. Sure, he'll shake your hand. You'll sign a deal. But you may look at that and say, he's halfway there, but I think I could get that thing produced a little better, or I can bundle that with something else and create a brand off of it. My point about, I know we're nearing the 2 hours. My point about the 5-star valid, here's the kind of summary. If it's a 5-star validated idea, you're not the only guy that's found it. Every Tom, Dick, and Harry is looking at the same data you are, and the faster you jump on this and the more money you spend, I think the majority of the time, the more you're going to lose and the more you're going to suffer for it. So be the Yeti, think outside the box and get this thing produced with a story to tell, or completely create a whole new product, which is by far the toughest. You know, you talk about Joe Roosterfin. Dude spent 4 years creating this brand of board games, and he has, you know, some doctorate in applied mathematics that creates gaming engines. All right, most of us are not smart enough to do that, but you can. You can create the next best, you know, gizmo, gadget, whatever. Some lady created the fidget spinner by accident, didn't know what she had, so it can be done. But I think that finding the Yeti and telling a story are by far better than finding that 5-star validated Jungle Scout product and just getting drowned with the rest of everybody else seeing the same data you are. That, I guess, would be to kind of summarize it.
So let me ask you this, a couple of quick questions. What's one of the biggest mistakes you've made, but you learned from it and it's actually helped you do better?
Trying to launch 5-star validated items. I've done it.
And how many times did you have to do it before you said there's got to be a better way?
It didn't take long. You stub your toes twice, you figure out where the footboard of the bed is.
All right. What's a nut? Go ahead.
I said, but I do get to cheat because I get to see literally hundreds of private labelers attempts at this. So I get kind of a bird's eye view of a very, very intimate view of what other people are doing successfully and what they're screwing up on. So I do get kind of a cheat, which is why I like sharing this. Is why I like coming on with guys like you and getting to share some of that stuff. You know, I'm in logistics. That's my business. So I don't really make any money by sharing my crazy private label ideas, but I'm passionate about it. And I like seeing people succeed. And I want to share kind of the wisdom that I'm gaining by the unique perspective that I'm allowed to have.
So I'm probably going to have you back on after time passes. I'm sure we're going to get some follow-up stuff. I may have a couple more questions coming from the survey results, but they were slow to get to me, so I didn't have a chance to sort through them. But Tim, I really appreciate you being on board tonight. I've learned a lot about shipping and just the logistics. I'm also open up about Central America. Oh, I mean to ask you this. Have you been to India, and what's your connection with India as far as wanting to go and expand there?
So I have not been to India yet, but I have clients that are there. But more importantly, one of my business partners is Indian, and he grew up in Africa. He became a U.S. citizen, you know, joined the Army, all that good stuff. But he has massive connections to India that, you know, I speak to probably on a, you know, bi-weekly basis, you know, to a large crew. There's also an emerging Amazon sellers group in India. You know, they're selling Amazon India themselves, and they're trying to learn this stuff. So a lot of them are reaching out to guys like me to actually export from the U.S. into India. Okay, think about that. The middle class in India is growing. Disposable money is becoming readily available. They want American-made goods. So now we can procure the U.S.-made goods and export to India. So India is kind of on the back end of my radar. I really haven't focused much on it, but I would say I'm in contact with 30 or 40 Amazon sellers or producers there in some way or another. So it's definitely on my radar, and I think in 10 years from now, there's going to be a lot of private labelers getting stuff produced in India.
Ken says, absolutely amazing content. Thanks so much. Please have Tim on again. See, I tell you, that's what people tell me I have the greatest interviews, but really I have the greatest guests because they're smart.
I wish you'd tell my wife that because she argues that I'm smart. So I'm going to record what you just said, and I'm going to show that to my wife.
And it is going to be recorded. You can take a snippet out of it if you want to. Guys, you'll get a replay link in the thing. Share it with your friends. We only had about 30 people on tonight, and we should have a lot more. And I want more people because I believe that one of the things I'm going to start doing is, besides just having Amazon sellers on, we're going to have somebody that knows how to sell on Instagram or how to advertise on Facebook and drive traffic to Pinterest or whatever it might be. There's going to be lots of different things to do that. We're going to also publish this as a podcast. So eventually, in the next 2 or 3 weeks, I'll be launching a podcast. I'm really trying to come up with a branded name. I can't use Amazon Live Hangout because Amazon will come after me when I publish that in iTunes. If you guys can think of something to do with private label and you want to come up with a brand name or a logo, I'd love to hear that. Also, one last question. Mike, I never did figure out what you meant by this. Somewhere along the line, Mike asked a question about, are you doing this trying to enhance your product? I can't remember what you were talking about, Tim, at the time. But also to tell your folks about the this interview. You can send them a link that you got to sign up, and even after it's over, I'm pretty sure the link will take them to the replay page.
Yep.
On top of that, and I'll be uploading this to a separate YouTube channel and all that good stuff. And I'll have Tim back on because he has some good stuff to share. We got more good stuff to do. You're going to be on the AM PM podcast with Manny Coates. He's the guy that. Here's what I meant to say. Manny Coates runs Helium 10, which is a whole suite of tools and services.
You and me.
Huh?
Dominic's hitting us with a Roll Tide.
And so one of the things I'm going to do is once a month, I am going to start having companies come on and demo their service or their software or their tool. It might be an attorney that specializes in defending Amazon. It could be Helium 10, like Manny Coates, that has a bunch of different software products, etc. We're going to do that once a month. And I don't hate money. Okay, so if I do have these guys on, it's going to be guys that I have take a look at their products. I've either used it or vetted it through close friends that I know I can trust that if they validate it, and so I probably will be compensated through an affiliate situation. What's the matter? You don't like Roll Tide? Are you a dog fan? So
I'll just leave it there. I'm not even going to answer that.
All right. So anyway, that's going to happen once a month. So we'll be having companies. So if you got a company that has if you use a tool yourself, your favorite software tool, and it makes a difference in your business, please let me know. I'll track down the owner of the company and have them on. We've had Greg Mercer on here from Jungle Scout, and now that you've trashed his program, Tim, I'll give him a chance to come on and trash you.
That's all right.
And your concepts, because we do have some controversial ideas. If you watched all my interviews back to back, you're going to see that there's a whole bunch of different ways to do things. And this guy says do it this way. The next guy says, well, if you do it this way, it's a bunch of crap. They don't realize that guy just said that. So we stir it up out here if we can. Anyway, Tim, thanks for being on, brother. We're going to check out and say goodbye to the crowd.
All right. Thank y'all very much for showing up, listening to me rant.
All right. Cheers. See you guys at the next one. Look for us next Thursday. Oh, James Amazio Finn will be my guest this coming Thursday. He went from 0 to 50,000 in about 4 months. He's relaunching a brand new Amazon account. He also has a company called Feedbacks, which does a job of sending out requests for reviews, and it's a spectacular software program. We're not going to review the software program. We're just going to interview the seller. Until next week, we'll see you guys later.